Hi, my name is Nathan, and today we're going to do a comic book review of Berserker, issue number 7, brought to you by RatedComics. Let's get to it. We begin this issue like this. Keep in mind the way this issue starts and ends is exactly the same place. We see B with his eyes blue tubed up in this cylinder cube. We don't know what it is, but keep in mind how this starts is exactly how this ends. But the meat of this book takes place a week ago where Berserker, or Unut, meets with Caldwell. Caldwell thanks Berserker for making the time to take the meeting today. So Berserker asks him what's on the agenda. More cartography? More hieroglyphs? What is it? And it's kind of interesting, like, why are you having B study maps? But then again, it kind of does make sense just from the beginning. If you follow the issue, feel free to check out the playlist at the end of this video if you haven't. Follow the issue if you want to get caught up. How B has lived such a long time back in the BC era, it might make sense later why he's studying maps and arts and symbols and stuff. So Caldwell tells Berserker that you and Kieber did well in the last mission, getting this artifact right here. So Berserker's like, well, what are you going to do with this? And he's like, I'm glad you asked, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about this item. In 2010, it found its way into the museum you rated by weight of arms dealers looking to launder their millions. Buying up antiques, they had no idea what they had. And before that, in 1944, it was part of a priceless cache liberated from the Nazis. And one thing I do love, before I go any further with this, is that this book goes into an explanation of this artifact and the truth behind Berserker, or at least a little bit more into it and where this issue can lead. But the backstory of this is awesome. Now, as being part of a priceless cache liberated from the Nazis, they were also overrun by the Russians. Just one of the many priceless artifacts. In 1944, I love how every panel shows a piece of this artifact dating how far back it goes. It was looted by the Nazis during World War II, and after spending hundreds of years trading hands in the marketplaces across the Mediterranean, which is in the 1700s. Back in 1453, it was lost in battle by a long line of warriors who belonged to a secret cabal. Cabal. A cabal that protected, served, and believed in its power. Who does cable nowadays? It's all about Netflix, Amazon Prime, and HBO Max, in my opinion, but that's another story right there. Then back in 750 BC and 760 BC, it was acquired from a shadow caravan that crossed the Sahara from the great Nubian capital Napata in southern Egypt, where they believe they can exploit the technology and rituals ancient and unknown. 1026 BC, rituals they learned from ancient texts lost in the fire of Alexandria and stolen centuries earlier from the original owner, which we see this Babylonian warrior who was presented with the king going ham in war, but we see the artifact around his neck. After finding it on the battlefield a year earlier, I'm sure you remember the Battle of Babylonia afterward, Berserker, because you were there, Unut. You were there slashing, crashing, putting, going to ham. And then we see this moment where Berserker gets his hand cut off during battle, but he still goes to work. But at that birthplace of a new region, and we see this guy picking up this hand from Unut, a sect that would worship you, study you for thousands of years, a sect that's alive today with one purpose, to become you, or just like you, a god. And this guy carries Berserker's hand in the bag, and B is just there with his hands cut off, just looking at him in bloody, gory, brutality mess. So he opens up the box and it's whatever's left of his hand. So B has to confirm, is this my hand? From all those years ago, back in the BC era? Caldwell's like, yeah, well, what's left of it at least. Over the years, it's been eaten, smoked, boiled, sex magic, I guess. And what kind of hand job is that? And injected, so there isn't much left. So Caldwell's like, yes, I know it's kind of weird, but they do have their uses. And lost DNA is useful. And the Berserker's like, and how did you get into all this, Caldwell? He's starting to get pissed about it. So Caldwell explained, my father, I always followed my father's footsteps, I suppose. He was an archaeologist with a ferociously encyclopedic mind. And we get the flashback of him and his father right there. And you could tell the tension keeps building in this speech. And the fact that Unut doesn't see through him with this tension, I believe it shows how bad he wants his mortality back after living all those years. Unut notices, okay, now it explains all your artifacts in this office, right? And I mean, you collect. And he's like, yeah, that's my life's work. The reason they hired me, I will stop at nothing to gain knowledge about you. And if you go into a flashback past of the younger Caldwell killing other people who I believe had looked for Unu, or members of what amounts to a secret society that he's part of, or probably him getting closer to finding out who Unu is. But whatever it is, he has a very dark past. And with this tension, this just confirms it. But because B wants his mortality back so bad, he just can't seem to understand it or can't seem to see it. And he ends with, they need what I know, and I need their resources. Berserker's like, okay, so you're my biggest fan. How does that help me? Oh, you're such a cheese, but what you don't know is we use everything from amino acid racemization and serialization, everything relative dating to place every fragment of you that we found in both space and time. With that information, we're able to triangulate your locations and movements. Technology has migrated across continents and civilizations over thousands of years because of you. So Caldwell asked you, do you know what caused the survivor technology after the disappearance of civilizations? You, beyond war, beyond conflict, you spread knowledge, technology. You know this deep inside. You know what your purpose is, don't you? And Berserker's like, I don't know if I like the sound of this. And he gets a flashback of going primal on the Sabretooth in the very cold of winter. So Caldwell continues to elaborate. You can kill an army with your bare hands, but that isn't your real power. These carvings, no one can read them but you. I wasn't everywhere. I don't know everything, says Unu. You lived through younger, direst period 12,000 years ago when the earth cooled. It's a hopeless historical blind spot. Tell me, B, what was that lost civilization like? And it just goes into another flashback of him and that Sabretooth. And from what it looks like, I would say it was pretty savage. I mean, tell me how savage it was without telling me how savage it was. That's how savage it was from what it looks like. Or the Olmecs, rumored to have telepathy. All theories, but if you were there, you would know. And it shows a flashback of B and the Olmecs, and he's like, I promise I wouldn't talk about it out loud. Oh, you're screwing with me, Berserker. And B's like, and you're not helping me. You do understand that information is power, right? But there is information you want that neither of us have. Power that we both lack. We have Protocol X, which was highlighted in the previous issue. So Berserker's like, what is Protocol X? Well, it's designed to put your mind and body under intense pressure. You have perfect memory, but you aren't a GPS. You remember what happened, but you don't always know where. You understand time must have slowed, like a slow crawl for you. And Berserker's like, yeah, it almost feels like a standstill because I lived almost like forever. He's like, yeah, you are a glacier, slowly transforming everything around you. But you are changing as well. With Protocol X, we can push that further, potentially discovering the place you were created. Or born. Yes, your birthplace. If we can find that place, we can give you mortality. We can set you free. So Caldwell goes to the map and he talks about, I've been trying to triangulate your mother's position where she took that cocktail that conjured you up and the totem that was lost, that totem that can give you mortality. Protocol X might be a way to find your answers and our answers too. And Berserker's like, why do you call it Protocol X? Why? I'll tell you why. And I love this panel right here where it shows him because X marks the spot and we see the X in the Mojave Desert. And this panel right here clearly illustrates that Berserker is buried deep underground in this cube, undergoing Protocol X. The spot where we dig a hole and bury you 2 miles deep with no way out. Then we see what happens. And then we go back to the panel where we start off with issue number 1 and it ends in the same place except the countdown being number 1. I believe it's going to be something about before we give your mortality, we want to know more about you, want to know everything. Or are they even going to give Berserker his mortality at all? Which to me, that's one of the most interesting ideas in this book. I believe it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if a person like Unu existed, there would be a whole schools of belief based on him and his exploits, entire sections worldwide, or at least the ones that know about him, devoted to him, studying him, wanting to learn about him, want to know everything they can about him. Now, usually Berserker is a comic that I love, the gory brutality that was just over the top, but I do love how this issue, it could have easily got carried away with exposition and dialogue and explanation of what's going on. But you know what? We still get a taste of that horror brutality that is the essence of Berserker in my personal opinion. But you can comment below, let me know what your thoughts on that. Link in description if you wish to add this comic book to your comic book collection. I can't wait till this gets translated into a film or television series. With that being said, Berserker issue number 7. What you guys think of the comic book? Comment below, let me know. And also, if you like the content we're throwing up, you know what to do. Don't be shy and don't be stingy. Here at Rated Comics, we do awesome comic book reviews, comic book related content with the occasional comic book giveaway. Thanks again for watching. Until next time. you.